There is a moment every night when silence should take over, when the world begins to slow down and the mind prepares to rest, but not when you are dealing with a Gemini energy. Instead of calm, there is movement. Instead of quiet, there are thoughts racing in 10 different directions. 1 minute feels like peace is finally arriving, and the next, a storm of ideas, emotions, and restlessness takes over. If you have ever tried to create a night routine in this chaos, you know it can feel impossible. But what if the secret was not to fight it, but to understand it? What if the key to staying sane was hidden inside the very nature that seems so overwhelming? This video is not about controlling the uncontrollable. And it is definitely not about forcing calm where chaos naturally lives. It is about learning how to move with it, how to create structure inside unpredictability, and how to build a night routine that actually works when the mind refuses to slow down. Whether you are a Gemini yourself or someone living, loving, or dealing with one, what you are about to discover can completely change your evenings. These are real strategies, practical adjustments, and mindset shifts that make the difference between exhaustion and balance. If this resonates with you, make sure to subscribe, like this video, and stay until the end, because the final insight might be the one that changes everything for you. There is a unique rhythm that defines Gemini energy, and it becomes most visible at night, when the external world begins to quiet down but the internal world seems to wake up even more intensely. While most people start to slow their thoughts and prepare for rest, the Gemini mind often enters a second wave of activity, revisiting conversations, generating new ideas, and exploring possibilities that feel urgent and impossible to ignore. This is not a flaw, nor is it something that needs to be eliminated, but it does require understanding, because without awareness, this pattern can easily turn into mental exhaustion and emotional overload. The first step to not going crazy is accepting that this is not something that can be forced into silence, but rather something that needs to be guided gently into a calmer state. The mistake many people make is trying to impose rigid routines that go against the natural flow of a Gemini mind, expecting immediate stillness where there is naturally movement. This creates frustration, resistance, and often leads to giving up entirely on any form of structured night routine. Instead of fighting against this energy, it becomes far more effective to design a routine that includes space for expression, space for thought, and space for gradual slowing down. This means recognizing that the transition from activity to rest must be intentional and layered, not abrupt. The mind needs to feel that it has been heard, that its ideas have been acknowledged, and that it is safe to let go, even if only partially. One of the most powerful strategies is creating what can be described as a mental unloading phase before attempting to sleep. This involves setting aside time to write down thoughts, ideas, concerns, and anything that feels like it is demanding attention. The act of transferring these thoughts onto paper or a digital space creates a sense of closure, allowing the mind to release the pressure of holding on to everything at once. Without this step, the brain continues to loop through unfinished mental tasks, preventing any real sense of relaxation. This practice is not about organizing thoughts perfectly, but about emptying them enough to reduce the intensity of internal noise. Another important element is understanding the role of stimulation, especially in the hours leading up to sleep. The Gemini mind is highly responsive to new information, and excessive exposure to screens, social media, or stimulating content can amplify restlessness. However, completely eliminating stimulation is often unrealistic and counterproductive. The key is to shift the type of input rather than remove it entirely, choosing content that is calming, repetitive, or emotionally neutral instead of highly engaging or mentally demanding. This subtle adjustment can significantly reduce the level of cognitive activation while still satisfying the need for input. Physical movement also plays a crucial role in regulating this energy, particularly in the evening. While it may seem counterintuitive to engage in activity before rest, light and intentional movement can help discharge accumulated mental tension. This does not mean intense exercise, but rather gentle stretching, slow walking, or mindful body awareness practices that reconnect the mind with the physical body. By grounding attention in physical sensations, it becomes easier to shift away from endless thought loops and move toward a more relaxed state. The body becomes an anchor when the mind feels too scattered to settle on its own. Creating a consistent sequence of actions is another strategy that can bring stability without imposing rigidity. The Gemini mind thrives on variety, but it also benefits from recognizable patterns that signal the transition from day to night. This could include a combination of activities such as dimming the lights, preparing a warm drink, engaging in a quiet activity, and gradually reducing external stimuli. The exact routine does not need to be identical every night, but the general structure should remain familiar enough to create a sense of continuity. This balance between flexibility and consistency is essential for maintaining engagement without triggering resistance. Emotional awareness is often overlooked, yet it plays a significant role in nighttime restlessness. The Gemini tendency to process thoughts rapidly can sometimes bypass deeper emotional layers, leaving unresolved feelings lingering beneath the surface. At night, when distractions fade, these emotions can resurface in subtle but persistent ways, contributing to unease and difficulty relaxing. Taking a few moments to check in emotionally, even without fully analyzing or solving anything, can create a sense of acknowledgement that reduces internal tension. Simply recognizing what is present can be enough to prevent it from intensifying later. Another strategy involves redefining what a successful night routine looks like. Perfection is not the goal, and expecting complete stillness or immediate sleep can create unnecessary pressure. Instead, success can be measured by gradual improvement, by moments of calm within the chaos, and by the ability to return to the routine even after disruption. This shift in perspective removes the all-or-nothing mindset that often leads to frustration and abandonment. Consistency over perfection becomes the guiding principle, allowing progress to happen in a more sustainable way. The environment also has a profound impact on the ability to relax, and small adjustments can make a significant difference. Soft lighting, comfortable textures, and a sense of order can create a space that naturally encourages calmness. For a Gemini mind that is easily stimulated, reducing visual clutter and minimizing unnecessary distractions can help lower the baseline level of mental activity. The goal is not to create a perfectly minimalistic space, but to design an environment that feels supportive rather than overwhelming. Every element should contribute to a sense of ease rather than adding to the noise. Time perception can become distorted when the mind is highly active, making it feel like there is always more to think about and never enough time to rest. Setting gentle time boundaries for different parts of the night routine can help create a sense of containment without feeling restrictive. For example, allocating a specific period for mental unloading, followed by a transition phase, and then a wind-down period can provide a clear progression toward rest. These boundaries act as guideposts, helping the mind move from one state to another with less resistance. Breathing techniques can also be surprisingly effective, especially when used consistently rather than as a last resort. Slow, rhythmic breathing signals safety to the nervous system, helping to counteract the heightened state of alertness that often accompanies an active mind. This does not require complex methods, but rather a simple focus on lengthening the exhale and maintaining a steady rhythm. Over time, this practice can become a natural part of the routine, providing a reliable tool for shifting into a calmer state. It is also important to recognize the role of curiosity, which is a defining characteristic of Gemini energy. At night, this curiosity can turn inward, leading to endless exploration of ideas and possibilities. Instead of trying to suppress this tendency, it can be redirected into more contained forms, such as reading something light or engaging with familiar content that does not trigger excessive analysis. This allows the mind to remain engaged while gradually reducing the intensity of its activity, creating a smoother transition toward rest. Sleep resistance is often not about the inability to sleep, but about the reluctance to let go of the mental engagement that feels stimulating and rewarding. Understanding this dynamic can change the approach entirely, shifting from forcing sleep to gently inviting it. This involves creating conditions that make rest more appealing than continued activity, rather than trying to overpower the desire to stay mentally active. When the environment, routine, and mindset align, the transition becomes more natural and less of a struggle. Another overlooked factor is the accumulation of unresolved stimulation throughout the day. If the mind has been constantly engaged without moments of pause, it is more likely to seek release at night. Incorporating small breaks during the day, moments of stillness, or even brief periods of reflection can reduce the intensity of nighttime activity. This distributes mental processing more evenly, preventing it from building up to overwhelming levels by the end of the day. The concept of control also needs to be re-examined, as trying to control every thought or feeling often leads to increased tension. A more effective approach is to create conditions that influence the overall state rather than attempting to manage every detail. This means focusing on the environment, routine, and habits, while allowing the mind to move naturally within those boundaries. This shift from control to guidance creates a more sustainable and less exhausting way of managing nighttime energy. Patience becomes an essential element in this process, as change does not happen instantly and requires consistent effort over time. There will be nights where the routine works perfectly and others where it feels completely ineffective. This variability is part of the process and does not indicate failure. What matters is the willingness to continue, to adjust, and to learn from each experience. Over time, patterns begin to emerge, making it easier to refine the approach and achieve more consistent results. Ultimately, the goal is not to eliminate the dynamic nature of Gemini energy, but to coexist with it in a way that supports well-being rather than undermines it. This involves embracing flexibility, cultivating awareness, and building routines that respect the natural tendencies of the mind while gently guiding it toward rest. When approached with understanding and intention, what once felt like chaos can become a manageable and even enriching aspect of the night. There is something powerful about learning to work with your nature instead of constantly fighting against it. What once felt overwhelming can become something you understand, something you navigate with more ease and less resistance. A night routine is not about forcing silence, but about creating space where the mind can finally breathe. When you stop trying to shut everything down and start guiding it instead, the experience changes completely. Balance does not come from control, but from alignment. And sometimes, the difference between chaos and calm is not the absence of movement, but the presence of awareness.